make some elderberry syrup. It's not a very difficult recipe, and in fact I love it because it's one of the things that I can make and have cooking away on the stovetop while I'm doing other things in the kitchen. So what do we need to get started? Well, you're going to need some dried elderberries. If you have fresh, that's great, and because they weren't very plentiful in this area, which is Philadelphia area, over the end of the summer season when most berries are happening, I had to resort to dried ones, but they work just as well. The other thing that you're going to need is honey, or if you're trying to do this for children, then you'll want to use sugar, because honey is okay for kids, but under the age of 1 you don't want to use them because there's a botulinum toxin that it's rare, but it can happen, so don't put yourself at risk. And the other thing I'm gonna need is some distilled, or in my case, I'm just using spring water, but then I've already boiled it to take it to that extra step. And I do also, I'm not a biggest fan of the way that elderberry tastes. I love elderflower because it's much more gentle. So I'm gonna be adding a few things like a little bit of star anise and a couple of cinnamon sticks and some cloves, just to give it some good flavor. Start with 2 full cups of dried elderberries. I have them in a non-reactive pan. I am going to add 4 cups of my spring water that I've already taken the extra step and boiled, just to make sure it's as good as possible, because you're only as good as the ingredients you use. So that was 2 cups, and here comes another 2 cups. And I'm gonna set this on the boil. While I'm waiting for this to come to the boil, I'm gonna add a few things just to give it a little flavor, because like I said, elderberry by itself, I'm not the superest fan. But I'm gonna add in 2 cinnamon sticks. And a note that I learned from Adele Nozar was to add star anise, because that actually also gives it a good kick, as well as slices of ginger. Now you can add as much as you'd like. My mother happened to be addicted to ginger while she was carrying me, so that's probably why I too am a big fan of ginger. And now I'm just going to let this come to a boil and then kind of cook for about a half hour just on the stove top. Once it gets to a rolling boil, I'll turn down the heat so it just simmers for that time. So I will show you that in a minute. I also wanted to add a few whole cloves, but unfortunately I don't have any in the house right now. So I'm gonna add just a half teaspoon of clove powder, just to, again, help enhance the flavor. And all of these things work really well together to help circulation. They also work to help if you've got stuffy noses, as well as sore throat issues. So adding this will be fine. Let me just give it a good stir and let it continue to do its thing. Now that it's come to a rolling boil, I'm going to reduce the heat to simmer and let simmer for about 40 minutes. So here is the product that has been cooking for 35 minutes. Now I'm going to remove it from all heat source and let it steep for about an hour. Now that this has been resting for an hour, it's time for me to strain. There are many ways to strain this. You can use a chinois, but I personally just like a good old-fashioned milk bag, which allows me to squeeze out every drop. By using the nut milk bag, I was able to really squeeze the ginger and the cinnamon star anise and get this much out, as well as get the last remnants coming from the bag. I'm also gonna just hang this bag in a minute so that any that remains in I can get out, because if you're gonna spend time to do this, you wanna get every drop out. It's cooked down and everything has been removed from it and strained. You can see I have just slightly over 2 cups of fluid. Now, if I was going to just sweeten this, I could add just 1 cup of honey or 1 cup of sugar. But because I want this to be shelf stable, I'm adding even more sugar. So I'm actually this 2 cups of fluid, I'm gonna add 2 cups of honey. I've added 1 cup of honey so far, and if I was gonna do this just for home use, then I could simply stop here, let it cool, and then it would be great in the refrigerator for several weeks. However, because I like to keep this in the larder, what I'm going to do, instead of adding 1 cup of honey or sugar, I'm adding 2 cups of honey. And I'm also, because I'm really hedging my bets and I'd like to keep it as long as possible, going to add 1 cup of vodka, which will help preserve it, because both sugar and honey are natural preservatives, but so is alcohol. If I was giving this to a child, then I definitely would omit the alcohol, add 1 cup of honey, and you're good to go. But I want this to last a good long time, and since there are no children in my household, I don't have a worry about adding the 1 cup of vodka. And now my honey is pretty much dissolved. I can feel it going through the bottom of this, that it has dissolved. So I'm going to add my vodka. I'm putting in 1 cup of vodka, and if you'll remember from my other tincture videos, the reason I do this is to give it shelf stability, but the magic number is 20%, meaning that 20% has to be alcohol in order for it to preserve. That becomes less of an issue because I've doubled the amount of honey here, but it's still a great preservative. And now, once I put this in sterilized bottles, I should be good for approximately a year. I mentioned that I want to put these in sterilized bottles because I will be giving a few away. So what I use, which I thought was pretty ingenious considering the size that I need, is a microwave baby bottle sterilizer. You fill this up with water and you put it in the microwave for 3 minutes, you are done. Perfectly sterilized bottles. They remain sterile for 24 hours as long as the lid remains closed, but I am now going to fill these. I'm not going to cap them right away because you don't want condensation to build up and then run the risk of, adding extra water into the mix that you don't want and cause spoilage. And this is it. Out of that batch, I was able to get 6 4-ounce bottles, as well as just a larger one for my household. See, it didn't take that much time, and it's not as scary a proposition as you may think. So please give it a try.